Hello and welcome to What God Can Do Ministries. We've got an interesting testimony for you tonight. We have, let me introduce you to him. It's Lionel Kiasi. He's from Congo and has lived in this country since he was 5 years old.
Yeah, about 4.
And then Bishop Reid, my husband, and myself, Dr. Ruth Reid. Okay, Lionel. So you remember coming over from Congo to Nigeria, first of all?
Yeah, we made a stop in Nigeria. I think it was just for financial reasons. And I remember we were there for about a year. And whilst we were there, we got involved with the church there. I can't remember the name of the church, but my mum got heavily involved in the prayer group, and I got involved with the music, and so did my brother. And ever since that age, I've always been involved in church. I've always been brought up in church. Whenever I meet new people, I always tell them I'm a church boy, because all I've ever known was church. Although at the time it was very religious and very legalistic. I remember when I was very young, my mum used to sit us on the bed and we switched the lights off, and she'll teach us how to pray. And it was very specific. It had certain rules that you don't break. For example, you had to have the lights switched off. I don't know why, but the lights had to stay off. You have to have a shirt on. You can't wear a vest. You have to have a shirt on. So it was very legalistic, a lot of it. But it did at the same time teach me quite a lot.
But surely if you had the lights turned off, God wouldn't see your vest.
Well, at that age, that's what I questioned a lot of times. But
Why?
That is cute. Go on, yeah. What did it mean anything to you at the time?
What, the vest or the shirt?
No, it really did mean something to me, not at the time, but I think later on in life, when I got to school. And although it was, now I look back and say, right, it was just religious. Actually, I thank God for it, because it did keep me from getting into trouble. It really did. When I got into school, made a lot of friends, and I see the sort of things they got up to, and I thought, wow, I've never done any of these. I didn't even know people actually do things like that, because it really did shield me a lot. I remember my mum used to teach us how to pray, and I remember there was a time when I went to Switzerland, and we were cycling, me and my friend of mine. We stayed in a place where it was high up on a mountain, and from a distance you can see the beach. And we decided at the time, we were just very young, we decided, let's get our bikes and just go down to the beach. From the mountain, it doesn't seem that far. So we thought, right, let's go. And we went. And we were going down the mountain for hours, absolutely hours. We had no idea where we were going. And we never did make it to the beach. But
Did you make it back up the mountain?
That was the struggle. It was an absolute nightmare. I remember eventually it was starting to get dark, and we thought, right, there's no way we're going to get there. Let's turn back and head back. And the moment we turned around, we thought, which way do we go? We had no idea. So we just started to head up. We knew it was just up, so we started making our way up. And on our journey, I remember we got chased by a dog, and we had to cross over fields and stuff like that. And we thought, how are we going to get back? We can't speak the language. We don't know the number. We don't know the address. We're absolutely stuck. And that's when I remembered the stuff that my mum used to teach me, how to pray and stuff like that. And I just decided, let me just pray. Let me just ask God. So I did. Whilst we were actually walking up the hill, because we couldn't cycle upwards, we were walking up, I decided, right, let me just pray and say, Lord, help me. And I did. And amazingly, we were on the road, and we went off the road to cross this field. I decided, let's just go this way. Halfway through that field, just minutes after I prayed, we looked up and we saw this house, and there were some people playing table tennis. And we thought, right, that's interesting, let's just head up there. And as we got closer and closer, you started seeing the people, and you started recognizing the faces. And suddenly we realized that's the hotel that we were staying at. And I just thought, for me, that's something very simple, but it just showed me God actually does hear prayer.
That's right.
Although I learned it out of religion, but the religion was false, but the God was real.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it blessed me. It really did. I appreciated it later on in life. I started to realize. So yeah, that was the way I was brought up.
But you weren't the smartest boy on the block to leave a hotel that you didn't know where it was, in a country you didn't know where it was,
No.
to go down a mountain where you didn't know where you were going,
No.
to go to a beach where you never got to,
No.
then to come back in the dark.
Yeah.
And
No.
I mean, you
God
know,
did take care of you.
He did.
the
He
Amen.
did.
Lord was merciful.
He really was. He
Yeah.
really was. No.
Yeah. So then, what happened next? Well, how did Jesus really become real to you?
It was really much later in life. We got involved. I mean, we jumped from church to church. I've lost count of how many churches we've been to. I really have. Probably a dozen or so. But it was in the last church that I went to before I got involved with your ministry. It was a deliverance ministry. And a lot of the stuff that I saw there now, I absolutely condemn. Everything in me, I just condemn it. And I did to them as well. But somehow, until this day, I can't understand it. But somehow, in the midst of that, the Lord met me.
Okay.
He's gracious.
He's
Yeah,
gracious.
he is.
Yeah.
It really is. It was a sermon, a one-off sermon that the pastor preached. And halfway through the sermon, see, the thing is, as far as I was concerned, I was saved. I was a Christian. I've always been brought up in church.
Yeah.
God's my father. But halfway through the sermon, she started speaking about God is our father. And I can't even remember what the sermon was about, but she kept on going on about that God's our father. And the most strangest thing happened to me. I went to sit down. I sat down and I just put my head on my hands. And I just couldn't hold myself. I just started crying and crying and crying. And I just remember when I was crying, I thought, this is so embarrassing. My parents are here, my sister are here. These are people that know me. And I was so embarrassed, but I just couldn't hold it back. And then I had this kind of image or vision, if you want to call it that, being in a really dark place. And this dark place was inside myself. And right in front of me was Jesus. And I remember just actually verbally saying, I actually have a Heavenly Father. All of a sudden, he became so real to me. And instantly I realized what I had before was just religion. Now I actually know he's my father. I actually know it. It's not that my parents taught me. I know him for myself. And after that, everything changed. He became so real to me.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, the teaching that I was still in that deliverance ministry. The teaching was still horrendous. So although I just met the living God, I was still under that teaching. So I never understood anything. I never grew or anything like that for the next 2 years. But in the ministry, I began to grow. I started getting involved with music and helping out like I always did. It got to a point where I got involved with the intercession group, and I joined the prayer group and stuff. But the thing is, before you join that group, you have to go through an intensive Bible study. And that's when things started to change for me, because whilst I was doing the Bible study, I was absolutely loving it. I was enjoying it. But in the middle of that, something, I don't know from where, something struck me, and I just started saying to myself, there must be more. This is good, but there's more. Somehow I knew that there was more. And I started questioning. I didn't know how I was going to get this more. I just started saying this, I need to gain more knowledge. Until one day after the Bible study, we're walking home, and I was walking to my cousin at the time, and he started speaking of another lady in our church, and she said, oh, so-and-so went to Bible school. And the moment he said Bible school, it's like an explosion just went out, blew up inside of me, and I knew Bible school, that's the answer.
Okay,
That's what I need to do. And instantly I got home, I told my parents that, Mom, Dad, Bible school, I need to go to Bible school. And they were absolutely thrilled. Because a few years earlier, my dad was trying to get me to become a priest. And I was absolutely disgusted with the idea. So he was happy. He thought, great, right, and we got straight to it. started surfing the internet, and we found a school in London, South London.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't happy with it at all. And then we continued on searching, and we found PCHE, which was the college that you ran at the time, because he'd been to the church 2 years before that.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought, right, okay, let's go. And I remember the very first time we went first to the service, and I knew nothing of yourself. I knew nothing of your ministry.
No.
And the first time I walked in, and I thought, wow, this is probably the biggest church I've ever been to. I've never seen such a big church before.
Yeah.
I mean, it had lights, cameras, everything. I wasn't used to that. I've always been to small churches.
Yeah.
And immediately what struck me was the preaching was totally different. I mean, I remember you were making jokes and you were talking about the football. And me being brought up in such a religious background, I thought, my goodness, he's making jokes. I couldn't believe it. I remember we got up and I said, Lord, where have you brought me? I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, jokes was fine, but it was joke after joke, and everyone was laughing and enjoying themselves. I thought, this is very strange.
Yeah.
It's like nothing I've ever seen before. But for some reason I liked it. And I asked to speak to Bishop Reid. And after the meeting, he made time, and we went upstairs to the cafeteria. And he spoke with me, yourself, and Dr. Thorpe, who was the dean of the college at the time. And I just remember at the time speaking with you. At the time, I was absolutely shaking in my boots because, you know, this is like a man of God. You know, the way I was brought up, a man of God is a man of God.
Yeah,
You know, you don't joke with a man of God. And you were speaking to me so casually, and I knew that you respect. You know, you don't joke with a man of God. And it was just such a strange time for me.
Yeah.
In the end of the conversation, we spoke for about an hour, maybe half hour, and by the end of it, I was actually asking for permission to join a Bible school, and by the end you said to me, yeah, that's fine, you can join. But I was concerned, how am I going to be able to afford it? And you made a way for me, because I was actually working in a school, in the kitchens, and I was helping out, and so the fee for me was just half price.
Yeah.
So that saved me a lot of money as well. I thought, perfect, Lord, I know this is what you've prepared for me.
Yeah.
Everything just fell into place. I got into the student accommodation, which was really, really cheap.
Yeah.
Everything was just perfect. And I started studying, and that was just when I turned 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, you must have realised that he had his ministry was other than jokes.
Oh no, I knew that. I mean, what attracted me most was that I knew it was a miracle ministry.
Yeah.
I heard of the testimonies, and I saw all the pictures, and I saw some of the videos. So I did do my research at first.
Yeah.
But I only saw that side of it, the miracle ministry, and I thought, wow, this is a real man of God. And when I came, I saw he was joking, and I thought, right, okay, I wasn't expecting that at all. But no, I mean, within 2 weeks after once I started studying, within 2 weeks, everything changed. I remember actually thinking that experience that I had 2 years ago, when I know that the Lord met me. Now I actually understand what happened to me.
Yeah.
I had no idea, not really. I just knew that God met me. But the only teaching that I had of born again was from the places where I've been to. So I actually started to understand what actually happened to me, who I am now, and where I am now in Christ. And within 2 weeks, I remember going back to my old church. I just couldn't stand even to sit there for 20 minutes. I started getting angry. I started getting frustrated. I felt sorry for them. And after a while, the pastor would be preaching, and I'll just get up and walk out. And they were absolutely disgusted with me, but I couldn't help it, because I'd learned something. I discovered this truth that they knew nothing about. I couldn't stand it, and eventually I was called over to the pastor, and we sat and I spoke with her, and I challenged them, and basically they just condemned me. And that was the last of it. I thought, that's it, right, I'm leaving. And that's how it all began, how I got involved with your ministry.
Yeah. And did your brother come along as well?
Yes, he did. My older brother, yeah, he did. He followed me My parents, they stayed for a while, but then after a while, they realized what I was saying was true, and they also followed me.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, we all actually, for a time, we all started going to your church.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's how it happened.
Mm. Mm. Okay, so
Your brother sang in the choir, did he?
Yeah, he sang in the choir as well. He sang in the Father musical as well,
mm-hmm.
and he loved it. He really did.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what did you gain from the Bible college after? Well, how many years were you there?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
What did you gain from it?
What I gained from it, wow. I think I need about an hour or so to tell you that, but
Yeah.
no, I did gain so much from it. I realized everything that I've learned, all these churches that I've been to, and I can honestly say every single one of them, they don't have a clue.
Mm.
They really don't have a clue, especially the last one that I've been to, the deliverance one. I remember that this thing that they used to do, once you join a church, you have to confess all your sins.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this thing where you had to write down the name of your grandpa, your great grandpa, and obviously I was only young at the time. I had no idea. I don't even know my great grandpa.
Mm.
But I had to write their names all down, write down the sins and everything, and go in and start confessing and everything. And that was part of the process of deliverance. And after I started studying, I started looking back and realizing, my goodness, they're miles away from God.
Mm.
I mean, forget the theology. They're miles away from God.
Yes.
I don't think God was even there,
Yeah.
to be honest. So it transformed me completely.
Mm.
And obviously, I started sharing what I was learning with other people.
What did you do with when you wrote down all your sins on the paper? What did you do? Give it to your pastor?
Yeah, you go into this room with your pastor, and you present it to the pastor, and he or she would do prayers over it. And I can't really remember the whole thing. It was several years ago.
It's Christian voodoo
Yeah, that's
It's a
all it
shame.
is.
or
Yeah.
Vindaloo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Mm. Yeah, but there are a lot of these deliverance churches, aren't there? And
Yeah, I tell people if you go to a deliverance church, the only thing you need is deliverance from the pastor.
I agree.
And find a church where there's life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
When Jesus comes, you are born again.
Yeah,
And you're translated from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of his dear son.
that's right.
It's over.
Mm.
You don't take baggage with you.
No, that's right.
It's
yeah.
just nonsense.
Mm. Mm.
But it's a shame so many people get caught up in it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And they believe in generational curses
Mm.
which don't exist.
Mm.
They get mixed up mentally.
Mm. Yeah.
But, so it's quite a checkered experience, really.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what happened to you when you didn't quite manage to finish your degree, did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So, what happened to you there?
Well, when I finally left the college, and I went away from the church, and I decided that I was gonna find somewhere where I can stay, another church where I can stay. And I remember having this idea. I was gonna get a job, save up money, and just travel,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find a church where the Lord where the Lord wanted me to be. And so for about a couple of months, actually nearly a year, in fact, I was just saving up money. I went to a church up in London, in Golders Green, and that's what I was doing. I was just searching, constantly searching. And whilst I was doing that, you started your ministry here, What God Can Do Ministries.
Mm.
And someone who goes to this ministry called Everton, I remember he was constantly calling me and inviting me over. And I just thought, no, I'm gonna search for myself. I want to find my own place. And for several months he was inviting me, and I was just putting it off all the time.
Mm.
And then he gave up. And months later, the most strangest thing happened to me. For about a week, I found that although everything in my life was going well, I just couldn't rest. I had no peace whatsoever. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't rest, I couldn't do anything. And I just had this burden in me all the time, literally non-stop while I was at work. I had this burden. And I remember one day I was in my brother's house, looking after his house while he was away. And I was just sitting there on my own. I had this TV switched off, and I was thinking, Lord, what is this? What do you want from me? I mean, am I not doing the right thing? Am I not looking for a church? Yeah, I knew what he wanted. And I remember I put on a DVD where Bishop Reid was preaching. And the moment I saw his face, because I'd stayed away from everything, I didn't want anything to do with it. I heard all these rumors. I didn't know what the truth was. I was confused. I was scared. I just thought, right, let me just get a new start. And I just kept everything away. And the Lord really came on to me really strong. And the moment I saw Bishop Reid on that DVD, something just hit me, and I said, right, okay, Lord, I know what you want. You want me to go back. I'm going to go back. But then I decided, right, let's just make a deal here and now. I would go back only in the condition that once I step into that place, you give me back my peace. But if I don't, I'm not going back. The moment that meeting's finished, I'm leaving, and I'll never come back. And 2 weeks after that, I got the address from Everton, and I did come. I hired a car, and I came over with my cousin. And then I could honestly tell you, the moment I walked into that door, and I think I didn't even see Bishop Reid, I just saw you at the front. The moment I walked in, I knew instantly, this is where I belong. I instantly found peace. And I thought, right, okay, let me just wait a minute. Let's just see, just in case it goes again. And because at the time we were meeting in your home, we wasn't at the place where we are now in Seven Kings. So I came in and I sat down and I waited. Everyone turned up, and there wasn't that many of us at the time. I think on that day there was probably 7, 8, 9 of us, maybe, very small. And I remember Bishop started preaching. I sat back on the chair, stretched out my legs, and I thought, this is home. This is where this is where the Lord wants me to be. And I had absolute peace. And since then, I've always had peace. And since then, we've been through, I can personally say, I've been through so many trials since then. So many trials, so many testing times. But the Lord's always helped me to overcome it. All of us have the same testimony. We've always overcome it. And to this very day, nothing's taken away my peace, even though the enemy has tried. Not been successful, though.
You know, it says, to explain it to you viewers, it says in Job 24, verse 2, men move boundary stones. Men don't like the spiritual history. They move the stones. They pasture flocks they have stolen. And it's amazing that God curses any man that moves the boundary stones. It's a curse. And that's in the NIV. In the King James, some remove the landmarks. They violently take away flocks and feed thereof. And it's amazing that so many people don't understand. You can't take a spiritual heritage away. You can't take a vision of another man's vision and run with it. So they steal. They're thieves. And God will deal with them. It's very dangerous to do that, and tells you what will happen to them. But the fact is in life that, you know, God bought you, taught you, and then you just can't go off if you do. Now, what they did, you know, and the devil always does, he brings fear, he brings suspicion, he tells lies. A man of God who makes a mistake, but it doesn't nullify what he did and what God did through him. Never. And anyone that speaks against it ends up blaspheming the Holy Ghost. But because a man falls, a righteous man will get up 7 times. Because a man goes wrong, there's restoration. My Bible says, if a man be overtaken in a fault, let them that are spiritual restore such a one with a spirit of gentleness and meekness, lest they themselves be overtaken. Now, that was the exact opposite of the people who wanted to steal the church. They'd plotted, they'd planned, and they're evil people. Well, God sees it, and God will deal with it. that's the way it is. And so when you came back and you found peace, you found that I hadn't died.
No.
My ministry hadn't died. The miracles still happened.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of liars took over and stole everything. And there's such hate in them. I mean, they live by hate. And God says, he that says he loves God and hates his brother is a liar. Doesn't know God.
No.
Certainly doesn't love him.
And really, you found that you, where you belonged, God brought you back again.
You certainly did.
And you're home.
You're home, yes.
I am.
Yeah. And it's exciting what's happening.
It really is.
Yeah.
No, it really is. Do you know what? What I found really interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people probably have experienced the same thing, or probably, you know, there's some people out there who might experience what I went through, is that I realized that I tried to run away. I didn't try to discover the truth. That was a big no-no. I heard what happened. I heard what people were saying. I heard the lies, and I ran away. It was innocent, but I didn't make an effort to discover what the truth was.
No.
And so I was ignorant. But the Lord caught me back, and He took away my peace. And I often think, what would have happened if I didn't turn back? Would it have gone worse or not? But I thank God I did turn back.
Well, God puts the famine in the prodigal son's heart. So he ends up in a pig pen and he says, I'll be better off back home in Father's house. And they come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a lovely testimony. You know, you can get hold of us on our website, whatgodcandoministries.com. You can see beautiful testimonies and miracles, what God's doing today. Nothing changes.
No.
You know, I'm still with the same wife I married 40 years ago.
That's right.
And we're happy. I'm happy to be away from the dogs and the wolves. And I'm happy to be with friends and people who know God. And I thank God for the ones who remain faithful. And I thank God I don't have to deal with the unfaithful ones. God bless you. God bless you. Do go to our website, whatgodcandoministries.com. See you.